William didn't just conquer England, he audited it. 1066. Hastings. Harold Godwin's son dead on the battlefield, an arrow through his eye, or so the legend goes. Norman cavalry trampling Saxon infantry. A throne seized in a single afternoon of blood and strategy. History remembers this as conquest. But conquest was just the beginning. What came next was something stranger. Something more enduring than any battle. William ordered his clerks to document every acre, every plough, every pig in the kingdom. He sent commissioners into every village and manor with a single mandate: count everything. This wasn't governance. This was accounting. The first large-scale data extraction project in European history. And it became the foundation of an empire built not on force alone, but on information, taxation, and bureaucratic precision. The Domesday Book. 20 years after Hastings, it remained William's most powerful weapon. Not a sword. A spreadsheet. Imagine the England William inherited in 1066. A patchwork of competing loyalties, fragmented estates, and feudal obligations so tangled that no one, not even the lords themselves, knew exactly who owed what to whom. Saxon nobles who had bent the knee but still commanded private armies. Danish settlers in the north who paid tribute to no one. Church lands exempt from secular authority. Royal estates inherited from Edward the Confessor, but with boundaries disputed and revenues uncertain. William had won the crown. But he had no idea what the crown was worth. He faced the ancient dilemma of every conqueror: power without knowledge is unsustainable. You can seize territory, but you cannot govern what you cannot measure. You can demand tribute, but tribute without accounting becomes negotiation. And negotiation is just another word for weakness. So William did something unprecedented. He decided to know everything. In 1085, he convened his court at Gloucester and issued the order. A complete survey of the realm. Every landholding. Every resource. Every tenant and subtenant. The commissioners would travel county by county, hundred by hundred, village by village, asking the same questions everywhere. Who holds this land? Who held it before the conquest? How many ploughs? How many villagers? How much woodland? What is it worth now? What was it worth then? The interrogation was relentless. Systematic. Inescapable. The Domesday Book, named by the English themselves, who compared it to the Day of Judgment, was more than a census. It was an instrument of conversion. It converted land into data. Feudal relationships into fiscal obligations. Ambiguity into certainty. Before Doomsday, landholding in England was performative. You owned what you could defend, what tradition acknowledged, what your neighbors accepted. Boundaries were fuzzy. Obligations were negotiable. Power was local and personal. After Doomsday, landholding became textual. Written. Recorded in a book held by the crown. Your claim to property wasn't just what you held, it was what the book said you held. And the book was updated, audited, and enforced by royal authority. This was revolutionary. William had created a registry of assets that could be taxed with precision. No more vague feudal contributions. No more lords claiming poverty while hoarding wealth. Every manor had a valuation. Every estate had a tax assessment. Information became control. The commissioners' inquiries weren't gentle. They cross-referenced testimonies, compared answers from multiple witnesses, investigated discrepancies. If a lord claimed his estate was worth less than before the conquest, they demanded proof. If a tenant underreported resources, neighbors were questioned. The Domesday Survey was financial surveillance on a scale Europe had never seen. And it worked because William backed it with the implicit threat that resistance meant forfeiture. Lie to the commissioners, and lose your land. Truth, in William's England, wasn't moral. It was fiscal. But the genius wasn't just collection. It was application. The Domesday Book gave William something no English king before him had possessed: a clear picture of national wealth. He knew what England was worth, down to the last ox. That knowledge became leverage. He could tax efficiently because he knew capacity. He could redistribute land strategically because he knew who controlled what. He could reward loyalists with precision and punish rebels with surgical accuracy. The data funded the machine. Tax revenue from assessed estates flowed into the royal treasury. That revenue built castles, permanent stone fortifications that replaced temporary wooden motte-and-bailey structures. It paid for a standing administrative apparatus, sheriffs, justices, clerks, who enforced royal authority in every shire. It financed a Norman aristocracy that owed everything to the crown. William had redistributed nearly half the land in England to his followers, but he did it through a system where every grant was recorded, every obligation specified. Feudalism in England became less about personal loyalty and more about contractual obligation backed by written record. This was the birth of bureaucratic governance. The idea that the state isn't just the king, it's the system. The records. The processes. The mechanisms that function regardless of who sits on the throne. William didn't just conquer a kingdom. He built an operating system. Compare this to every other conquest in medieval history. Vikings raided and extracted plunder. Mongols conquered and demanded tribute. Even Charlemagne's empire was held together by personal charisma and military force. But William created something that outlived him. The Domesday Book remained in use for centuries. Not as a relic, but as a living administrative tool. Property disputes were settled by reference to its entries. Tax assessments were calculated from its valuations. Royal courts cited it as ultimate authority on landholding. It became England's fiscal DNA. Every subsequent development in English governance, Magna Carta's limitation on arbitrary taxation, the evolution of Parliament as a forum for negotiating revenue, the common law's reliance on precedent and documentation, grew from the foundation William laid. He proved that information is infrastructure. That data, properly organized, becomes the skeleton on which power is built. That empires don't endure because of great leaders, they endure because of great systems. And the system William built was ruthlessly simple: know what you have, record it, and extract value systematically. There's a psychological dimension too. One that's easy to overlook but impossible to overstate. The Domesday Book didn't just inform the crown. It informed the subjects. Every landholder knew their name appeared in the book. Every village knew its resources had been counted and recorded. The very existence of the survey created a new kind of awareness. You were visible to the state. Your wealth was known. Your obligations were specified. There was nowhere to hide. This is panopticon centuries before Bentham. The knowledge that you are being observed changes behavior. Compliance becomes self-enforcing when everyone knows that evasion will be detected. The book became a symbol of royal omniscience. It didn't matter that William couldn't personally audit every estate. What mattered was that he could. That the machinery existed. That resistance wasn't just defying a king, it was defying a system that had already catalogued you. Every Englishman knew his name was written in a book that could not be erased. And that knowledge alone was a form of control more powerful than any army. William the Conqueror died in 1087, a year after the Domesday Survey was completed. He fell from his horse during a military campaign in France, mundane, anticlimactic, utterly ordinary. But the system he created, that lived on. His sons fought over the throne. Dynasties rose and fell. England was invaded, divided, united, and invaded again. But through all of it, the administrative apparatus endured. The habit of record-keeping. The expectation of taxation. The understanding that the state wasn't just a person, it was an institution. Modern nation-states operate on William's principle. They census populations. They register property. They track income. They assess, audit, and extract. Every tax return, every land deed, every government database is a descendant of the Domesday Book. The mechanisms have evolved. The computers are faster. But the logic is identical: know your resources, quantify your obligations, enforce compliance through information superiority. William didn't invent taxation. But he demonstrated how to make it systematic. How to transform conquest into administration. How to convert force into finance. Here's the lesson that echoes across 9 centuries. Empires aren't built on land. They're built on ledgers. On the ability to measure, record, and extract value from territory. Conquest gives you possession. But only information gives you control. William's conquest began with a sword. It endured because of a spreadsheet. Because he understood that knowing what you have is more powerful than simply having it. That data is leverage. That bureaucracy, properly constructed, becomes self-perpetuating. Every modern state, every corporation, every organization that spans geography and time operates on this truth. You don't manage through personal oversight. You manage through systems. Through records. Through the accumulation and application of structured information. William the Conqueror didn't just take England. He catalogued it, quantified it, turned it into something that could be governed at scale, across generations, regardless of individual rulers. The battle made him king. The book made him eternal.